Welcome back to the Behind the Well show. I'm your host, Roger Abel. I've got Elias here again today. The big catch-up for me, Elias, I'm just going to put it out there. I had 11 7- and 8-year-olds spend the night at my house Saturday night.
Wow. That seems like a lot.
It went significantly better than I expected. But you know how I set my expectations for things. I expected this to just be complete chaos.
What time did they all go to bed?
They didn't.
Did they just, they're talking all night,
Elias,
laughing. And
at 2:15 or 2:30, I was up in bed. And Megan stayed in the basement because she wanted to, be down there just in case. And I'm out. The light flicks up. 11, all the girls are screaming. I'm like, what is the problem?
in your bedroom?
Yeah, came in my bedroom, flipped the light on.
Were they pulling a prank on you? Or what?
You'd think. No.
What happened?
So one of the girls' moms apparently must have told them that if you stay up all night, you lose a year of your life. So they all come up thinking they're going to die a year early. And I'm like, guys, it's 2:15. Let's go back to bed. And, but you know what? We didn't have any fights. We didn't have anybody cry. We didn't have anybody leave early. So I think that's actually a win. My parents came over and we actually sat around downstairs and watched some games, and the girls played and did their deal. So it actually was fairly fun. A couple of parents came over to drop their kids off later. But that's how my weekend went. So needless to say, I laid on the sofa all day yesterday. I went to bed at 8 o'clock last night because I didn't get any sleep. I mean, I was up at 6 o'clock getting donuts, so I got, 3 hours of sleep maybe?
So then do you have, does the parent-friend group have a talk about how we need to teach them all that you don't lose a year of your life just for staying up late?
I don't know. But it was fun. My daughter, it was for her birthday, so she thought it was great.
Good. Sounds fun.
Your turn will be next.
You
have a little girl. You're going to be doing a big sleepover one of these days.
I doubt it. She's been invited to one, so she's going to her first birthday sleepover. I don't know that we're going to do sleepover. Yeah. She's had friends spend the night. But it has to be like a close friend, someone we really know. And I want it easy. I don't, and now you just told me a horror story, so why would I want to have a sleepover? I don't want 11 9-year-olds flipping my light on at 2 o'clock in the morning saying, hey, are we going to die early because we stayed up late?
So I actually think there are 3 little girls that never went to bed.
Wow. So their parents love you.
I think if you had
but that's normal for a birthday party.
Yeah, I think 3 or 4, you're going to get to sleep. But when there's 11,
it's too much.
Well, there's always one girl that can't sleep or one kid that woke up, which wakes the next one up. And I've got a funny video about 10:30 or 11. They're all watching a movie, and one girl gets up and went to our playroom, which we had set up like a dance club, strobe light, black lights. And it's my daughter's pad was hooked into the surround sounds, and the music actually, the lights flashed to the music, to the beat. All of a sudden, one got up, and at 11 o'clock, they were all in this playroom jamming out to Taylor Swift. Elias, it was just a bunch of girls jumping around and rolling around. I'll show you the video when we're done. It was hilarious. But my wife said when we're done, she goes, if we're going to keep doing this, we're going to need a bigger house. I mean, we had a good-sized house, but the whole basement was packed. And it got me thinking, I'm like, I don't know if we can afford a new house. That much bigger. And part of it got me going. There's an article on CNBC that talks about how home prices have actually risen 2.5 times faster than inflation. So to just kind of bring it back to topic, I think everybody out there realizes that the cost of buying a home for many is almost unaffordable.
Is it? It's gotten that out of hand?
we were looking, we look at, I look at real estate a lot just because I like to see what's happening with prices. And I look down at the Lake of the Ozarks, and my wife made a comment that doesn't seem like the homes and condos are selling as fast. And I said, well, that's intentional. That's why we have interest rates where they are. She goes, but the prices are still up. I said, well, that's a function of there's nothing for sale. And she asked me, she goes, why homes weren't selling as fast? I said, well, people can't afford to move up. So that also prevents listings from coming on the market. Because in 2021, your $500,000 house, your principal and interest was $2,000. Today, the principal and interest on the $500,000 house is $3,500. And $500,000 seems like a lot. That's actually the average. The median home price in America is $412,000.
That's nuts. That's crazy.
Until I read the article, I'm like, really? Because I always thought you could buy a lot less. And I start thinking, I'm like, you're probably right. Like, in my neighborhood, everything's 50% more. All the new construction's at least 50% more than when I built.
And the homes aren't something that, like, culturally people really want to have a nice house, where it's really odd because now houses are more expensive, and not only that, they're also larger. So one thing I always think is interesting is houses have become bigger and families have become smaller over the same time period. And back in the 70s and 80s, just people lived in like neighborhood with the house at just enough for what they need. And now we have smaller families, but everyone's home is a lot bigger. And it's certainly, if you go out to like a new development or something, they're building real big houses.
Maybe. Why do you think that is?
That houses have gotten bigger and well, one, it's people's income has gone up, so you can afford more. And I don't know, probably helps that there's a tool to purchase a large purchase like that too. Like 30-year mortgage helps facilitate the purchase too, right? You can spread it out over time. So I don't know, it's just more, it's more available.
I wonder if we'll start to see smaller homes. What makes that really curious, the observation you made, did homes get a lot larger because it was a function of interest rates and people could buy more? And now that interest rates are locked in, I mean, mortgage rates are locked in right around 7%, 6 to 7-ish%. Well, we actually see most of the new construction shrink by 20% in square footage so that someone can actually afford that house.
Are you asking, potentially will that happen?
Yeah, like shrinkflation on the home. Like, okay, yeah, that house that we were building that was 18, 19, or 2,000 square feet of the main floor, or 4,000 total. Does that go down 20% to make it affordable?
It's definitely possible.
But here's the problem with a home. It's not a direct correlation between, and there's a home builder out there that knows way more about this than me, but there's a certain amount of just sunk costs that you're going to have regardless of square footage. Right? I mean, like your electrical stuff. Yeah, I mean, outlets and stuff. But your general electric,
right,
you still got to have appliances.
So what you just mentioned there, it's probably easier to build a larger house now too, right? Because if you're going to pay an operator to come dig a foundation, well, for them, what's the difference between a foundation for 1,000 square foot house or a 3,000 square foot? They're already there doing the work.
Right.
So there's probably some more scalability too now.
The incremental cost goes down. That's what I'm talking about. So that idea that homes will get smaller maybe won't work. But I just think that I know the conversation I have with my wife, she's just like, well, why aren't people buying these more expensive homes? I said, well, they can't afford to now. People were able to go from $300,000 house to a $500,000 house in 2021 because the payment was the same. If they hadn't refinanced the $300,000 house and had a 5% rate, their payment was now almost the same. Well, now, not only is the house more, but the interest rate's double or triple, which makes it almost impossible for most people to significantly move up in homes. And we still have the problem of we're short like 4 million homes in America.
Yeah, we're just short, and I don't know I don't know how that gets fixed. Well, if there was more people that could build homes, it would get fixed, but that's probably not going to happen.
Well, I think the problem with that is it's so much risk. I think people are still scared from 2008 and 9. Do you remember in 2008 and 9, there were spec homes everywhere? Spec homes were a deal. Like, builders would build a house and then try to sell it. I rarely see a spec home anymore, and not multiple by the same builder. The guy who built my house has one spec home. And now the big builders like D.H. Horton and some of these other ones who are national builders, they clearly are. You know, the other interesting thing, I was watching YouTube this morning at 2:30 because I went to bed at 8. Dave Ramsey released a short little YouTube clip about how he was right about the housing market. How everybody said the housing market was going to crash. And nothing happened. And then it didn't. And he talked about why it wasn't going to crash. And he's like, talk to me in 5 years and prices will likely be higher than they are today.
Yeah.
But I mean,
BT Welsh show got that. I think we got that right too. We talked about no crash in real estate.
It wasn't really hard.
It wasn't a bold prediction.
Dude, the last time real estate crashed.
The supply is so much lower than the demand.
Yeah, will prices change? Yes, but a crash like insinuates that it's going down 40+%. And are there pockets of the U.S. that might? I don't know. Maybe. We don't predict. In our local market, that didn't really even happen in 2008. People's home value didn't go down 40% in 2008 where we're at here in the Midwest. Might have been a few cities.
Well, and in 2008 compared to now, it's a lot different situation. And a lot of people refinanced, and really in the things you're going to sacrifice, right? Even if we had massive layoffs because of economic slowdown, people are not going to just give up their house. Like, that's one of the last things you're going to let go into. You're going to not pay your credit card bill before you wouldn't pay your mortgage.
So part of what kicked off, have you watched The Big Short?
Yes.
So whenever the housing market gets brought up, I go watch that movie again because it's a pretty good reflection of what really happened. And in that movie, Michael Burry, his prediction was that mortgage defaults were going to start to go up in the second quarter of 2007. And the way he was able to determine that is he had went back and looked at all these mortgage-backed securities, and they had adjustable rate mortgages. I would venture to guess that a vast majority of Americans who bought homes previous to 2023 are on a fixed rate mortgage. In fact, we did a podcast on it. I had the numbers back in 2020 about it. Vast majority are on a fixed rate mortgage. Go to 2023, I'm going to venture to guess the adjustable rate mortgage made a comeback, right? Because they get a fixed rate for 5 years. So it's a lower upfront rate or a teaser rate. So if we were going to really see something meaningful happen from a housing market standpoint, it's likely at least 5 years in the future when adjustable rate mortgages start to move.
Yeah, but and
we're assuming a lot of rates are going to remain higher.
But adjustable rates are still lower than before 2007 and 8. Then when we did that show, that was the case.
Yes, but it's significantly lower.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying that would mean for the next few years, people are mostly doing adjustable rate mortgages. And then the lag effect is 5, 6, 7 years down the road before people would start to default.
Aha. I'm tracking with you.
I think the only other thing that makes me a little bit nervous about the housing market, there's TikTok videos out now about how to get the equity out of your house without doing a cash out refinance.
Fun. How do you do that?
The rise of the home equity loan.
Oh, HELOC.
Doing a HELOC.
Okay, instead of doing a cash out, you do the revolving line of credit.
But that's
okay.
But right.
Sorry, in my mind, those are basically the same thing. So I was like, well, how else do you do it?
Well, the cash out refi, you have to go take the new rate.
Right.
But the question becomes with that, Elias, if everybody does a HELOC and prices do go down 20%, is that the catalyst that does cause some type of a housing market correction? And I don't know the answer to that.
I don't either. I don't either. I don't know. I'm sure people are using the equity in their home for credit. I would assume consumers are. I mean, we already know credit cards are back to record debt levels. So then that's one of the next places that you can go to finance.
As soon as it's all over TikTok, it means people are doing it. I mean, literally this morning on might have been a YouTube short. I don't ever go on TikTok. I'm on YouTube. Might have been one of those shorts. How to get equity out of your home without doing a cash out refinance and losing your rate. I'm like, here we go.
Yeah, I might have to search that and start getting some new reels because for whatever reason, my algorithm thinks I want to learn about making sourdough bread right now.
Mine has
kept showing me videos of like how to make a sourdough starter, and I'm like, dude, I don't want to make my own bread. I'll go to the bakery. I don't know how that happened. I've never looked for any baking videos ever. So I don't know if maybe it was a conversation I had or what, but
it's listening to you.
It has to be because I have no interest in making any kind of bread.
Mine's all meat cutting.
Meat cutting
it's
videos?
Like the bearded butchers on there, like cutting meat all the time. I don't know.
Have you called your butcher or something recently?
Well, I get my deer processed once a year at the butcher, but I don't. It's just wild.
I'm going to search HELOC videos so I can watch reels about using your house for credit instead of making sourdough bread.
It's true, though. If you search something different, it will fill it up with other stuff. Because I searched for the Bassmaster Classic yesterday. It's all fishing now, which that's great. I can do that. I don't need how to butcher your own cow. I'm not going to butcher it ever. That the thought of the home equity line of credit and some of those other things, it leads me into really the next article that I read, and it was called The Poverty Mentality. And we've talked about this before, that sometimes people are just stuck in this mentality that they want to be financially successful, but what they do, they're stuck in the world of poverty. And we talked about the world of self-sabotage, where sometimes I feel like people do things to sabotage their situation subconsciously because they feel like they don't deserve something. They feel like they don't deserve to be financially successful. And the HELOC's one of those. Like, dude, if you've got $200,000 of equity in your house, why do you feel like you have to go spend it?
That's a great question. I don't know. I'm not sure the answer on what would make someone feel compelled to spend up the equity in their home. Well, no, that's not true. I know what it is. It's, you might want something you don't have. Like a common thing I think sometimes I've seen people use home equity for is like to buy a camper, an RV or something, right? A lot of times it's just to facilitate having things that you don't have another way to finance and buy.
Well, okay, if you're using the home equity to buy, I think you have to look at it in two lights. Let's say you are buying a piece of real estate with some of that home equity. That'd be reasonable. Like, I don't think that's a poverty mentality. If you're making a super good income, you have all your money under control, and you've got $500,000 of equity, and you want to go buy a piece of land or some other investment property, I'd be okay with that. But reality is most people aren't in that situation. And one of the things that keeps people in this poverty mentality, Elias, is focusing on things, and those things have zero or a negative long-term return. Meaning, you brought up camper, boat, cars. For most people, well, for everybody, the goal should be to have as little money in those types of assets as possible, because they're going down in value.
Yes. Yeah, they are.
Are you ready to take control of your financial future? The financial professionals at Premier Investments and Wealth Management are the guides you've been looking for. Picture this: a financial plan tailored exclusively to you. Our team of experienced professionals will work closely with you to understand your aspirations and develop a personalized roadmap to get you there. Whether you're dreaming of retirement, buying a new home, or sending your kids to college, we've got the tools to give you confidence in your financial life. We'll help you navigate saving and investing, retirement income, and tax strategies. Our job is not just about making money. It's about helping our clients make smart choices. We'll provide you with the tools and knowledge to confidently steer your financial ship toward a brighter future. Are you ready to embark on your financial journey with confidence? Visit www.btwealthshow.com or click the link in the description of this podcast. Your financial future awaits.
Yeah, and I think one of my takeaways for when I was looking through these different, another common thing is just not prioritizing saving, which I think there's several things that go in with that, like the keeping up with the Joneses mentality, not paying yourself first and stuff like that. But I thought there was a couple interesting ones too, where it said not valuing like rest and recreation, where I think sometimes a lot of people think the only way to be successful is you have to just grind all the time. That's not necessarily true. You also have to have time to rest and recover and basically like re-energize yourself, right? And then understanding where you are, right? Some people can work nonstop all the time. Other people get tired from that, so they need breaks. So I thought that was kind of interesting, and I kind of shed light on just understanding that maybe consistency, like the more consistent you can be with the things you do, it's probably better than the intensity you apply to it, or thinking that you have to just constantly be working. Like one thing, especially with the social media and the TikToks and all that, all the stuff about, if you want to be this and that, you got to have a side hustle. Well, if you're in a career where if you apply more consistent effort into that career, you can keep making your income go up. What do you need a side hustle for? Right? Isn't there a case to be made for just get really good at the things you're doing?
Yeah, you know what it's called? The 80-20 rule.
Is that what that is?
Yeah, that's what it is. It's most of us spend 80% of the time on the stuff that generates 20% of the results. If we focus on the stuff that generated 20% of the results, we'd exponentially get bigger. But the 80% is what bogs everybody down. It's the 80-20 rule. And it's funny because there's ways that, as I think about things, the 80-20 rule probably can associate to your personal finance too. I mean, when you're investing, what do people spend 80% of their time on? Worrying about their bank account.
With the bank account, or just
think
what
about
the balance
people's money
is?
in general.
Yeah.
They worry about their bank account 80% of the time.
Yeah,
but the
I
best
agree.
results, the 20% that they spend on their investment account, is where they actually get their best results. Think about it. If they spend 80% of their time on the accounts that got the best results, would they be better off?
I would think so.
People spend 80% of their time on mundane tasks and less than 20% of their time on working through their budget.
Right. The things that are meaningful. Work through your budget. What are your accounts that are going to perform the best? Right. And if you have the basics, the other, and I don't know if this is part of this, but an area where I think people do spend too much time thinking about, especially with personal finances, taxes, especially income taxes. And the reality for most people, like if you're working for someone, if you're an employee, there's only so many things you can do, right? Like you have some tax deferred accounts, you can max those out. But a lot of times because we'll get calls or people want to meet and, hey, I'm getting this money. I want to figure out like how to avoid paying income tax on my income. And there's just really no like silver bullet or anything that just totally eliminates you from paying taxes. So sometimes you almost just got to say, I'm not even going to think about it. I'm just going to do these other things right and just not worry about the taxes. And another thing I share with people, if you're making money, you're going to pay tax at some level, right? So is that a bad problem to have, that you're making money so you owe some tax? Now, I get it. No one wants to send their checks off, right? You want to keep all the money you can, and you should be diligent, work with a CPA. But I just think there's a lot of lost effort in pursuing taxes and how that impacts people's personal financial situation.
I'll give you a good example with even in clients with their investments this way. I think clients, and not just clients, but investors in general, love to focus when they look at their returns. They could have 10 investments, 8 are positive and done significantly well. And the 2 that didn't do as well, people want to spend all of their time on those 2 investments. Improving those 2 aren't going to matter because 80% of your portfolio did better. And people should think about that. Instead of focusing all your time on the underperforming stuff, just focus your time on the things that are getting the best results. And I think people in life, in their savings, always focus on the wrong thing, in my opinion. They never focus on the planning. They focus just on the results. If you spend 80% of your time planning, your results would go up astronomically instead of 80% of your time worrying about results. 80% of your time on your plan will drive to better results. It will give you the best possible outcome.
Right. The results will take care of themselves at that point because you're just controlling what you can.
That's the key. Control what you can control. And once you live in that world, it all kind of takes care of itself. There was a recent study put out by LPL Financial that 62% of retirees who were surveyed said they'd like to go back and plan differently. No kidding. Wonder why that is.
Well,
they're behind.
I know why, because I know exactly why. Like 1/3 of the population has done a financial plan. So that means about 2/3 of people out there, they're getting to that point in life and they have no idea. They have no idea if they're on track. They have no idea if it's going to work. They just don't know.
Doug Wagner actually forwarded me a article. I got it this morning, and it's talking about how is there a potential pension renaissance that's going to happen. And, pensions are they were the primary retirement vehicle up until 30-ish years ago. And most companies and small employers did away with them. IBM just announced that they're going to stop their 401k matching program and bring back the pension for their employees. And it's probably because most people don't want to plan and the money in the 401k is too accessible for them to go spend. Generally people just aren't disciplined. And if you give somebody retirement income, you're giving them security. If people really looked at why they save in their 401k, saving $1 million in your 401k is not what's going to make you successful in retirement. Getting the income from the money that you saved in your 401k is what's going to make you successful in retirement. And that's what a pension always did. It guaranteed you were going to have an income, right? People who retire with $1 million, they don't get to go spend more money than they did when they were working. We've seen this happen. Oh, man, I'm a millionaire. I feel wealthy. Yeah, it's going to last you 20 years.
Yeah.
And they might be gone in 5 or 6 if they don't treat it appropriately. So I think it's really interesting that, this article came out and these employees want a redo or would take a redo. At the same time, I read an article about how maybe pensions are coming back. And the article kind of quoted that IBM is kind of on the forefront of a lot of HR or human resource issues. So it'll be interesting to see if pensions start to make a comeback. I mean, look at our public employees who've retired with us. They live a really great retirement.
Yeah, most of the time they do because they got pension, they got their Social Security, they got savings.
Yep.
They just got all those buckets.
Now, inflation hurts them later on. My grandpa retired when he was late 50s, and now my grandma's inherited his IPERS check, and it's like $2,000. Well, that was really good 30 years ago. 35 years ago, it's not as much today. So just because someone gives you a pension doesn't mean you shouldn't save too. But I think it's very ironic that people aren't feeling good about where they're at. And I know why. They're not starting early enough. And the Secure Act 2.0, which passed about a year ago, one of the things they automatically do is automatically enroll everybody in the 401k or 403b. It's not optional anymore. You have to opt out which we've had the discussion, if you enroll someone at 3 or 4% of their pay, they'll have no idea they're doing it.
And I would imagine like with IBM bringing the pension back, it'll just be part of the compensation package. So the contributions will be made, right? It's probably not, is it an elective thing? Do you have to choose whether you want to do it?
So they're stopping the 401k matching program. So 401k no longer gets a match. Okay. Still have a 401k, but no match. I believe that match is just going into the pension now.
Going into the pension. It'd be interesting to see. And if they're typically on the forefront of HR, there's probably data that suggests employees want that benefit. There's probably they feel it's meaningful. So it will be interesting to see if more companies offer it.
Do you know what's ironic about that? Employees want more of that benefit, but if they called that benefit what it really is, it would be a dirty word.
The pension?
Yeah. It's an annuity.
Right.
But if you told a consumer, here's an annuity, and we're just in general talking about it, that's a dirty word to most consumers.
Right, and pension is not. Pension is not. Like exactly a pension's like a valuable, I have a nice pension.
It's exactly the same thing.
Yeah, it is the same thing.
But the industry's turned it into a dirty word. Whether they're good, bad, or indifferent, it is what it is. Just I think it's ironic that people are begging for a pension but would turn out an annuity in a heartbeat.
Yeah, and it'll be, I guess it'll also be interesting to, I guess if more people had the 401k money and a pension, I mean, I guess when they retire, they'll feel more security with more income coming in.
I think people would do significantly better with a combination of those two things. I don't think it can be all or I do. I think that if they had a pension and they had a 401k and they had their IRA or Roth IRA, they're just adding legs to their stool to pull from. I mean, remember, people are saving for retirement so that they have income. Okay, we've had individuals in this office who've taken lump sum pensions because they chose to. They didn't want to take the payout. We have some who ripped through more money than they should. Would they have been better off taking that pension?
Yeah, I was just thinking
100%.
About that. So there's certainly, like for people who really spend and they can't get the spending reined in for their retirement planning, well, you can't outspend your pension.
You're not going to.
You might be paycheck to paycheck, but it's coming the 1st or the 15th, however you get it. It's always coming.
Because that's always been a decision people have to make, or at least recently. Do I take the pension or do I take the lump sum? And a little bit of it, you have to understand what your relationship with money is. If you have a propensity to overspend, if you're 60 plus years old and you're retiring and you have a credit card balance of any kind, a lump sum pension you should probably think twice about. Because I'm not saying that credit card balance is bad. I'm just saying maybe you don't have a complete handle on what your outflows are every month.
It's very possible.
But it takes some hard reflection to admit that maybe, I mean, nobody out there would say I'm bad with money. Because if they admitted that, they wouldn't do it. Right? I mean,
I don't know. Maybe they're, I think I've heard that. I think I've heard people say, I'm bad with money. I just spend it all.
Well, if you think about our process, we try to get to know people to figure out how they're going to do this money. If someone comes in here and says, hey, I don't know what my budget is, you're in trouble. Like you have to, and okay, so you've made enough money that it hasn't mattered. I mean, some people make enough money that they don't really have to have a budget. They don't spend anything. Just because they don't have a budget doesn't mean that they spend a bunch of money. They just don't sit down and work through it. Going into retirement, you better work through it a little bit.
Yes, you should. And some of this stuff I feel a little insulated from. Most of the people we meet with, and certainly our clients, they've been through our process. And I think a lot about the young people that work with us. Like they're just doing a good job. They're doing all the things they should do. So I don't know. It's kind of, I hope they're not in the 60, like our clients that are with us a long time. I hope they're not in the 60% of people that respond to that survey and say, oh, I wish I would have done this different. No, I'm guessing they're going to be
they're in the 26% who've sat down and taken responsibility and did a financial plan for themselves.
Right. That's what I'm getting at. And they know things are going to work within reason, right? You can't control the fluctuations of the market, but they know things are going to work.
The reason you do a plan is to increase your sense of financial security. That's it. Let me ask you a question. If you had an individual at age 30, started putting 15% away, pick a target date fund or whatever fund, it doesn't really matter, just a solid stock market mutual fund, and did nothing for their entire life, but say 15%, do you think their outcome would be significantly different than a person who did planning?
You're saying you pick a single
mutual fund
and just buy it versus someone who does a full plan, like a financial plan?
The outcome.
What's
the outcome? I believe the outcome's similar. I do.
From just from the value of what you'll have.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
The difference would be the person that did some planning, they were intentional about hitting some targeted goals or things. Yeah.
They're more likely to stay on track because they did the plan, because now there's some conviction behind why they're investing the way that they're investing.
I agree with that.
And that's the 26% who've done a plan. It doesn't mean your outcome's going to be significantly different, but you're going to understand what it takes to get to your outcome, which is going to make you feel better about money.
I agree. Yes, I agree 100% with that. And we work with a lot of people who, when they come to us, they already have the habits, right? The financial plan is more of an exercise for them because we get a lot through the process. Well, I hear this a lot. We think we're doing all the things we should. We're just not really sure. We don't know if we can do something different. Most of the time people are saying stuff like that, like they are good savers. They're hitting all the boxes, but we got to build their conviction and their confidence in what they're doing, and that it does help with that.
What we're able to do is help them understand what they can do in retirement. So if someone comes in here and says, I think we're doing a good job, I think we're on track, most of the time, the vast majority of the time, they are, and they know they are. But what we can help them understand, Elias, is how do I get conviction to go take that vacation I've always wanted to take, or help my grandkids with college, and know that I can afford to do these other things, as well as make sure my future needs are met through my entire. We can dial it in for people. That's really what it is. If anybody's looking to get started on a plan, you can click the link in the description, or you can go to btwealthshow.com. Be happy to help you get started. We'll end this with our blanket advice segment. In 2024, we have coined the year of personalized advice. And one of the things we do on each show is take a piece of what we call blanket conventional wisdom and try to challenge it and talk about why those things maybe doesn't make sense. And I think this is one that people have heard for a long time, but it's the 10-5-3 rule. And they probably haven't heard 10-5-3 rule, but they will associate this. And the 10-5-3 rule is the expectation of returns from specific asset classes. So 10% annually from stocks, 5% from bonds, 3% from cash. That's some blanket conventional wisdom. What do you think about that? What's the bad about it? What's the good about it?
It's not unreasonable. I think I'll just go by the three different classes here. So the 10% annually from stocks, some of that's going to depend on what type of account, to whether it's taxable or like a qualified retirement account. 5% from bonds, that's got to be like a historical norm, right? But that wasn't the last
20
years. So that to me is, well, we could be coming back to that, but that's pretty high for what's happened the last 15 or 20 years. And then cash, Well, that's low now. 3% is probably historically good expectation, but it's low right now for cash. So I guess I would be more inclined to use the actual returns on my cash and my bond positions, because it's not hard to figure out, like especially with the bond, right? Your coupon payment, that's going to be your return.
Well, maybe. If interest rates change.
If you hold it to maturity.
Okay, if you hold it, thank you.
I got to qualify that. Holding it to maturity, you know what you're going to get while you own it. Same thing with cash and cash alternatives. I do think, so to expect 10% annually from your stock portfolio, that's probably a long-term reasonable expectation. That's right around what the S&P 500 has done for the last 30 or 40 years. So that's probably not too far off from expectation.
I'll tell you why those numbers don't matter.
Okay.
And why this is bad blanket advice in general. Nobody makes 10% every single year. And when you tell the general public you should expect 10% from your stock market investments, it never accounts for variance. So What does somebody do? They go out to a website, say, I have X amount of dollars, I'm going to make 10% a year, and they get this future expectation of money. So I promise you, you're overestimating how much you're going to have, because there's going to be years when the market goes down 20 and 30%. When the market goes down 30%, you compound on less money.
On the way back up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So rates of return and real dollars are two different things. So what I do, if I'm going to do a flat line calculation, means I'm assuming I'm making exactly the same amount every year from the stock market. And I have lots of clients who are engineers, and they come in with their spreadsheet, and guess what they have? Going to make the same amount every year. They're not accounting for variance, which is the changing market returns.
Yeah, so typically they lower the return expectation.
You lower your return. Okay, what if I got 6% from the stock market every single year? Is that a more accurate reflection of what I might actually have? Even though you might average 10, the number may be lower depending upon how you actually received the returns. And one of the things we've lived by for a long time is we're going to underpromise and try to overdeliver. I mean, instead of telling someone you make 10, okay, we're going to make 6. Anybody going to be mad if they make 8, 9, or 10, or 11? No.
I wouldn't think so.
But if you estimate you're going to do this at 10% a year, and it comes back and it's 6, you've set yourself up for a problem.
You'll be disappointed in the result at that point.
Back to how I preface most of the things in my life, Elias. I just absolutely expect it to be the worst case scenario. And if it turns out better, great. Kind of like that birthday party. With that said, I want to thank everybody for listening to the show today. If you're not already, follow us on social media. If you haven't got your financial plan in order for 2024, you can get your one-page Premier Vision document by visiting btwellshow.com or clicking the link in the description. I want to thank everybody for listening, and hopefully you tune in next week.